Before the Twitter files came out, my law firm and the Center for American Liberty sued Twitter and a host of other parties, including California's Secretary of State, for this very thing. And it was revealed after the 2020 election that California, my government, which I pay a lot of taxes to, was using those tax dollars. Enemies. Among the enemies is our client Rogan O'Hanley, aka DC Drano, who was just reinstated on Twitter last week. Our lawsuit is ongoing.
All right, so before we get into all of that nitty-gritty that you mentioned earlier, just a little bit more on the big tech stuff and free speech, because obviously we're seeing all of the Twitter files dumping right now. At the same time, we're also seeing the mainstream media or the corporate press, whatever you want to call them, we're seeing them completely ignore it. So our divergence between the people that believe one thing and the people that believe another thing is just getting wider and wider and wider. Do you think anything will actually come out of these leaks? I mean, beyond the fact that a certain amount of people will wake up, do you think that there will be legal action either against the U.S. government or further action against Twitter? And does that then push things down so that, down the road so that YouTube and Google and Facebook and everybody else might start getting looked at in a different way as well?
Well, there is action against the U.S. government. Eric Schmidt, Attorney General, and some others are filing suit. Before the Twitter files came out, my law firm and the Center for American Liberty sued Twitter and a host of other parties, including California's Secretary of State, for this very thing. And it was revealed after the 2020 election that California, my government, which I pay a lot of taxes to, was using those tax dollars. Enemies. Among the enemies is our client Rogan O'Hanley, aka DC Drano, who was just reinstated on Twitter last week. Our lawsuit is ongoing. That kind of litigation is ongoing, but the courts are not receptive to it at this time. We lost that case in the district court. We argued in the Ninth Circuit. You win or lose based on the perspective of the judges who are on the court, frankly. So what is needed, in my opinion, to really reform this situation is for Republicans to win elections. Republicans have to win elections, and it has to be the right Republicans. If you actually had the, out-of-touch crew who's in the Republican Congress and Senate right now, those were the same people who were in the Republican Congress and Senate when we had the White House in 2017 and 2018. Those were the leaders. They did nothing to address social media censorship. We need to elect new and better Republicans who get it. We need to reform Communications Decency Act, Section 230, to not allow basically a free pass to all kinds of torts and contract violations that courts are ignoring under the aegis of 230. And then we need to create, in my opinion, a social media users.
What do you say to the counter argument on the 230 argument? We've discussed it a lot on the show that some people will say, well, if you take away some of those protections, that then you'll actually hamper free speech because the platforms will feel that they're more responsible, and then they'll have to go after everybody to make sure everything's, clean or okay.
Yeah. I'm not advocating the removal of 230. I don't agree with that. There's a provision of it that says that social media companies can remove content that is quote unquote otherwise objectionable. So it isn't in an enumerated list. They use that otherwise objectionable to say vaccine information that's contrary to what Fauci says. They use that as an excuse to censor things that the social media company, want to suppress or manipulate. Or worse, as we're learning through the Twitter files, they let our government do that without disclosing it. No, I do not think that was the meaning of Section 230 at all. And Congress can make that clear. The law is old. 1996 law passed to actually protect social media companies. It's an out of control monster. And one of the reasons that, Dave, that you say that, there's sort of a lack of responsiveness by the mainstream media on these issues, the mainstream media has actually been crippled by dint of the social media companies having rights and privileges to say and do whatever they want, whereas the traditional media doesn't have those rights and privileges. In a way, CDA 230 has really weaponized the growth of these, the unaccountability of these big social media companies. And so I think there are some tweaks that could be done without empowering the government, empowering the users. There should be a social media users bill of rights that says that if they change the terms on you, if they ban you or suppress you for reasons that they did not disclose in advance, you have a right to sue them. We have rights like that with respect to pharmaceutical products, products that blow up, cars that don't work. We have those rights with commercial products. This is a commercial product. I'm paying to use Twitter. I should have some rights with respect to Twitter.
So What would you say? I know you do some work, obviously, with Ron Coleman, who's been on the show many times, and we discussed this once on air. If I was to find out, for example, that the government directly had contacted Twitter to take down the tweet that I had back in July of 2021 saying that vaccine mandates were coming and vaccines were not working as promised, et cetera, et cetera. If I was to find out, if through these Twitter files or whatever it might be, that actually it was because of a government agent telling Twitter to take it down, what is the reward for someone other than that maybe the government would acknowledge it? Can you sue the government? Like, can you be like, whoa, I want $10 million because you guys infringe on my free speech? Or is it just purely yeah, we screwed up, it's back up, and nobody gets fired, this is the government?
Well, we have been suing the government. The case I just described is like that. And in the Ninth Circuit, I think we ran into let's just say we haven't received the ruling yet, but it was not a favorable reception in the Ninth Circuit. I pray that, in fact, at the end of the day, these Twitter files actually started to come out after the hearing. And so maybe, the clerks and the judges will see that, whoa, this is actually a huge deal. This isn't a one-off. This is actually a whole system that's been exposed. A case like that filed in a different court might have succeeded, but actually under Twitter's terms of service, you have to file it here in California, so it's been a challenge. I'm confident that over time there will be a case that breaks through that says that this is a violation of the First Amendment. I do think it is. There are some First Amendment lawyers who say, oh no, the companies can do whatever they want. It was merely a strong suggestion from the government. But here in the Twitter files, Twitter was actually being paid by the FBI. I mean, I don't know how you can deny that that's government action. It's government action, obviously. So I'm sorry, I'm very animated about it, but I'm shocked that judges aren't picking this up.
Right. Well, also, if the government was to call me, if I got a call from a government agent saying, Dave, we're not telling you to do anything, but just FYI, we've been watching the show and you've been saying a lot about that, I might take that as a threat or some sort of order.
Yeah,
that's why the gray area here, obviously, is where the real stuff is.
Right. I mean, or, nice social media presence and show you have. Shame if something were to happen to it, or, maybe there's an audit, like literally the government has so much power over us. We're seeing it with January 6th stuff. I mean, they can do a crime and harass you. And so this is not trivial to me. And by the way, I, as a First Amendment lawyer, I would stand up for the rights of some leftists to be able to say whatever they want on social media. Mm-hmm. Short of threats of violence that are true threats or other violations of enumerated parts of 230, pornography and things like that. But that does not seem to be reciprocal. The left has entirely abandoned the principle mm-hmm. of due process, equal protection for speech issues on the right. The ACLU no longer supports free speech. They don't support you being able to talk about gun use. I mean, it is a 180. And it is just wholly a woke endeavor now. And so we, the right, have become the engine of free speech. And even on our side, people don't get it. So I'd love to see a whole revolution on our side about these issues.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about politics instead of mindless drivel, check out our politics playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, watch our full episode playlist, all right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.